Good evening. I'm Donnie Miller, the CEO of the Neighborhood Health Association, and we are so very glad that you've decided to join us tonight for Authors with Sister Souljah in celebration of Women's History Month. We hope that you've enjoyed the other Women's History Month programming put on by the library, and we encourage you to continue to join us for more virtual programming in the coming months, including Authors with Jack Carr. That will happen on April 20th at 7 p.m. Virtual Creative Writing Workshop, that occurs on April 27th at 6 p.m. And a number of virtual book clubs. Full details about these events and so many other things offered by the library can be found by visiting toledolibrary.org. The library has given me right now an opportunity to do the thing that I love most, and that's talking about neighborhood health. But I promise to take just a few seconds to do that. We are a group of what's called federally qualified health centers. We are all over the nation, and it is our goal primarily to ensure healthcare access to people who might not otherwise have it. But at our roots, and we were started by a group of community folks from the central city who were really concerned about people dying when they didn't have to. At our roots, we are about empowerment. We are about having people recognize that change that is required by things such as systemic racism require a kind of energy that you just don't have if you're sick. And we want people to recognize that so often their power relies on their health. So if you want to learn more about what we do, please go to our website at nhainc.org. You'll learn all about us. Give me a call if you want to talk about it more. I'd be really, really happy to talk to you about what we do. Before we get started, however, I'd like to take a minute to thank our presenting sponsor, the Library Legacy Foundation, for their generous financial support. We're also incredibly grateful to the presenting media sponsors. They would be the Blade and Buckeye Broadband, our supporting sponsor, Bureau Group, and the community sponsor, the Friends of the Library. The program is being recorded. You might want to know that, and it will be uploaded on the library YouTube channel. Staff will be monitoring both Facebook Live and the Zoom chat function, so please make sure to put your comments in those places throughout the presentation. I'm pleased to introduce to you tonight our moderator for the evening, Kathy Selkig. Kathy is the Director of Development, Affinity, and Events for the Toledo Lucas County Library. Hey, Kathy, welcome.
Thank you, Donnie.
Glad to have you here tonight. And now to our featured author for the evening. She's a best-selling author who is also known for her work as a political activist, a warrior and educator for urban youth. A graduate of Rutgers University, she's a beloved personality in her community. She lives in New York with her husband and son. Her latest book, Life After Death, is the page-turning sequel to The Coldest Winter Ever. Fans who have been waiting for 2 long decades will finally learn the answers to what really happened to Winter Santiago. Welcome, Sister Souljah.
Peace and good night.
Thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited that you're here.
Thank you very much.
Have you been touring virtually all over the country? How big is your tour right now?
Yes, I have been touring virtually, which this year, 2021, is my first time doing virtual anything. I'm a person who has not even done a FaceTime call. So I'm adjusting, getting used to staring into the little green light on my computer, but I'm a people person, so I really prefer to appear in person and to meet the readers and answer the questions and see the facial expressions, whether they're joyful or angry or dubious or whatever they are. So yeah.
Well, that's good to know. The next time your next book comes out, and if we're allowed to be in person, I'm going to request that you come in person instead of just doing virtual. So that's really good to know. Okay. So I'm going to get right into it. We are so excited to have you here. Your first book, The Coldest Winter Ever, has been read over 1 million times, which is fantastic. When you sat down and you created Winter, did you have any idea the impact she would have on the audience, on readers?
I only had to judge from the reaction my husband would have, because I would write, and each chapter that I would write, I would read it to him at night before we went to sleep. And he loved the character Winter Santiago. And as I went along, he loved it so much. And I just thought, okay, if he loves it, then maybe other people will love it as well.
Well, he is a very good reviewer then, because people absolutely love her. What do fans say to you when they meet you, or when they send you letters, or, you know, what are they saying? Are they hugging you? What's going on when fans are talking to you?
Readers always come to me after the book signing or at the book signing, and they say, you know, Sister Souljah, I am Winter Santiago. I feel like you had a camera in my house and were watching me, and you wrote my story, which really is very telling, because Winter Santiago, of course, is the daughter of a hustler. And it means that the experience is something that a lot of young women and men identify with, because of the way that drugs and narcotics created an economy in the urban areas where there was no positive economy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to jump down to a question that I had later in this, but you take some time in this first book, and, you know, we'll talk about the first book for a second, and you talk about how drugs and that lifestyle isn't really something to be glorified, and how it can destroy a whole family, not just the person who's using the drugs and living that lifestyle. And you've said the drug lifestyle is a death style. It's such a powerful message. What message did you want to convey in this book?
Well, first of all, I don't kind of summarize the books that I write and say, this is my message. I write purposely in layers, meaning that depending upon who's reading, each reader is going to connect with a certain idea, a certain feeling, get a certain message. And it really is a merger between what the author writes and what's there inside of the soul of the reader, what the reader takes away from the story.
Yeah.
So, you know, when people ask me to summarize, I always say, the thing about books is that the author writes them, and then you have to read them. You know, we don't want to write them and then have you ask us to summarize them.
Yes.
You know, we write them and you read them. And when you read them, it would be great if you could summarize it, you know,
Yeah.
and say how it impacted your soul, your
Yeah.
heart, and your mind.
Oh, I agree 100%. That's fantastic. You know, as we talked about a little bit in the beginning, over 1 million people have read this book, and they have such a strong connection, as you said, to Winter and her story. You know, knowing this, when you wrote this follow-up book, were you nervous? Were you a little concerned that, you know, with everybody having such strong emotions and connections to her, that maybe they wouldn't have it this time around, or they would, you know, analyze what you're writing differently because they had a different expectation? What were you thinking when you wrote this book about, you know, how popular your first book was?
I'm not a nervous writer, and I'm not a nervous person. When I write, I am writing from my soul, and I'm very confident about what I write. When I am writing from what I call or consider the top of my excellence.
Yeah.
I'm never writing anything just as a filler or even just as a thriller. Everything I'm writing, like every single word is loaded. Every single word should impact. I'm wanting the reader to read and every single word to explode in your soul or in your mind. So no, I'm not nervous at all. And sometimes people ask me, are you worried about what people expected, or is this
Yeah.
what people expected? Here's the deal. If I wrote what the reader expects, then I wouldn't be a great author, because that means that you could have wrote it.
Right.
If it's what you expected, it means that you could have done it. What distinguishes an author from the readers is the author's imagination
Yeah.
and the author's skill and ability to write. So this may not be what readers expected, but it is what readers receive.
Right.
And if you read it, I promise you that, you know, you will be moved. You will have an emotion. It will be packed with everything that a Sister Souljah novel is packed with and known for. And that's adventure, emotion, passion, sex, life lessons, spirituality, everything that I'm known for. This book, Life After Death, the new novel and sequel to The Coldest Winter Ever, absolutely represents the voice and the experience of Winter Santiago.
I love it. And everything you were saying is absolutely 100% true. Your characters are so vivid and alive, and they just jump right off the page at you. Are these characters, are any of them bits and pieces of people in your life that you've met over your lifetime, or are they 100% created from your imagination? How do you develop these characters?
These characters are certainly from my imagination, but I think any author would have to say that, of course, you're influenced by life, because if you're writing reality, you're addressing things that are real. So the drug epidemic is real. The impact it had on our communities globally really is real. So the topic and the issues are real. The characters are from the imagination of the author. And if this were a story based on somebody that I knew, I would certainly say based on a true story, but that's not the case. This is based on Sister Souljah's imagination.
Well, what an imagination it is. I'd love to spend an hour a day or something just in your world and see the way that you think, because it's so creative. You mentioned that events and things kind of impact the way you shape your story. This last year, these last several years have been just really, I don't even know where to begin in our country. When you were writing this follow-up book, did current events change the way you told the story? And if so, how did that work?
I think it's impossible not to be impacted by current events if you're conscious.
Yeah.
I wrote the bulk of this story in 2020. 2020 was a year of a very tumultuous year.
Yeah.
It felt like it rushed in almost like a hurricane of evil. It was a year of great political arrogance, lots of different political events happening, not only in the United States, but in other countries, even countries that may have been known for peace and love, were doing things that were not good things, that were evil things. This was a year of, for African American people, of terror, in the United States not feeling safe in their neighborhoods, in our neighborhoods, feeling worried for the lives of our sons, our fathers, our brothers, our husbands. This was a year of great environmental chaos,
Yes.
fires that wouldn't stop burning, and floods that wouldn't stop flooding,
Yeah.
all kinds of things happening. And it was almost feeling like there's a message being conveyed to us, every human being
Mhm.
on earth, that we, for some reason, were not perceiving or were refusing to acknowledge, or were trying to block from our consciousness. But despite the fact that we were not accepting the message, we were still receiving the punishment.
Yeah.
And so when I sat down to write this, I knew that it had to be more than drugs
Mhm.
and fashion and sex and shopping. And, it had to be deeper than
Mhm.
that. And
Mhm.
so life after death, I say, is a fight for the soul of the character went to Santiago.
Mhm.
It's a fight for the soul of every single reader, including myself.
Mhm.
It's a fight for the soul of America
Mhm.
and a fight for the soul of the globe.
It's so powerful. I read an article that came out recently about you, and in it, there's a quote, and it says, "So I try not to live my life in reaction to the power structure or live my life in reaction to racism." Can you give us some context around that statement? Because personally, I find it really hard not to react to racism. So what did you mean when you said that?
That means that no matter what, an individual has to have a plan and a purpose.
Yeah.
And I believe that the Most High gives every individual a life purpose. And you also receive tests along the way,
Mhm.
meaning it's not necessarily a smooth ride,
Yeah.
a smooth journey. But if you don't acknowledge and you don't believe and you don't have a faith, then you almost miss discovery of your own purpose.
Yeah.
And if you don't live your life with a faith, you almost regrettably don't realize that every human being that's born will also experience death,
Yeah.
will taste death. Uh, so you either believe that your soul goes somewhere
Mhm.
back to its maker, or
Mhm.
you believe that it was all a big nothing and your soul doesn't go anywhere. So
Mhm.
if you're living your life with an understanding that there is a God, that there is a judge, whether you like judgment or not,
Yeah.
there is a judge. If you're living your life this way, then you are taking measured steps in life.
Mhm.
You're concerned about, am I doing something that's good? Am I doing something that's right? Am I doing something that's honest? Am I doing something that's true? And
Mhm.
then you have a purpose, and then you have a plan.
Mhm.
Now, if you don't have a purpose, don't have a plan, and don't have a clear presence of mind, you'll just be reacting
Mhm.
to every single thing that's going on in the environment. I don't want to live life that way. I believe that there is a God, and that God is all powerful.
Mhm.
And I believe in prayers,
Mhm.
and I believe that prayers have an impact. And I believe that there is a great evil, and that the evil was created by God as well.
Mhm.
And but that you can be protected from it based on your choices and your actions. So I think it's very important not to let the evil of racism uh, control and limit your existence or our existence.
I love everything you just said, and we have a lot of people registered to participate tonight, and I hope they're hearing that message, because I think it needs to be said now. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to go back to the book a little bit now, because that's what we're here to talk about. Without going into a whole lot of detail, because we don't want to talk about the plot of the story. What
Yes,
kind of,
we do not.
well, we do not. What kind of character growth did Winter have after 15 years in prison? I mean, can you touch on that? I mean,
I think that Winter has a defense mechanism. And her defense mechanism is that she's royal, period.
mhm,
And so no matter what life throws at her, she is constantly reaffirming who she is, no matter what the circumstance is. So even when she is in the coldest winter ever, she's living in the hood. She's like, yeah, I'm living in the hood, but I don't have any sob stories for you.
yeah,
I don't have stories about pissy pew hallways, in poverty. I'm
mhm,
living in the hood, but I'm on top of the hood.
yeah,
I am the daughter of the biggest hustler. And so we're royalty. We have everything that we need. Our family is here. Our friends are here. Our community is here. The hood is a good place.
mhm,
And that's how she thinks. She lives in the hood, but she shops well. She's high fashion. She has it all. And even more importantly, she has a mother and a father who adore her
mhm,
and whom she adores. So she's rich on so many different levels.
yeah,
Even at the end of the coldest winter ever, when she is sentenced to serve 15 years of a prison sentence, she still sees herself as royalty. I'm in prison, but I'm a royal prisoner.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I'm about to rearrange everything, wherein I'm the center of everything. And everybody is going to want to be me once they experience me. So people ask me, how did she grow? I think she holds on to that defense mechanism,
mhm,
even in life after death.
mhm,
And her growth is almost something that comes very slowly
mhm,
uh, and through great difficulty.
mhm. Is there any part of Winter's character that is like you?
Well, I believe that every character that I write, I share something with.
Mhm,
Uh, I think Winter Santiago is the character I share the least. I share the least with.
mhm,
Um, but let me see. I think maybe her determination.
mm,
I don't think we have the same purpose
mhm,
or the same goals,
mhm,
but her determination that no matter what is trying to define her,
mhm.
she has a definition of herself and she marches forward into the fire, so to speak, with her definition.
Yeah,
And no matter who tries to alter her definition or her understanding, she is very determined. And perhaps that's something that we have in common.
she has a lot of great strength, and I've only been talking to you for 15 minutes, and I can already see that in you. So I see that.
Thank
Um, in your bio, you say Winter is realer than you, more real than you. What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that more people identify and mimic Winter Santiago
Mhm,
than identify or mimic Sister Souljah.
mhm,
There are millions of people who love me as an author because they love Winter, not necessarily because they love me,
mhm,
and
mhm,
that's okay. I'm fine with that, but that's what I really think. I think girls in the hood, women in the hood, women from the hood, more likely to be like Winter Santiago in their thinking, in their actions, in their loving, in their warring, in their wanting and desires, and so on and so forth, than they are to be me in my loving or in my warring or in my desires. So that's what I mean when I say she's realer than me.
Yeah.
She has more souls representing her
Yeah.
than I have representing me.
Well, she comes right off the page and just grabs you from the get-go. So,
Yes.
yeah. Did you always plan on writing a sequel to The Coldest Winter Ever?
Yes, I always did. But I didn't want to write a sequel like maybe a year later because I felt like even though this book is like wildly popular, it would be disingenuous or insincere for me to all of a sudden come out with a sequel when the character is sentenced to serve a 15-year prison sentence. If I came back with a sequel, it would take away from the sting of the reader realizing how real prison is, how real and what the consequences to the drug death style is. So I wanted the community to feel the absence of Winter's presence, the way we feel the absence of the presence of the people who we love who get incarcerated. It is not an easy journey to have someone in your family incarcerated, especially not for more than a decade. And we suffer. And so when our community talks about drugs, one of the popular phrases is it's the drug game. We tend to take phrases that people perceive as negative and we throw a positive spin on them. So we'll be like, yeah, we live in that lifestyle. I'm about that life, I'm about that thing, all these expressions. And I kind of wanted to flip that. I wanted to flip the expression lifestyle and use the expression death style. I wanted to flip the expression drug game and let people know this is not a game and prison is not a game. And when you lose a sister or a brother, a mother or a father, a husband and wife to the prison system in America, which has a population of at least 3 million prisoners, it's a serious loss.
Yeah. You've been an activist for decades. What do you say to young people listening about your books? I mean, I know that they've been banned and critics have, had their say about it, and they've created this genre, street lit. How do you feel about that? And what do you say to all of that?
I think my community knows what's real. And I think my community knows what we call the genuine article. And I think that any great artist, no matter what the powers that be have to say about that great artist, the people embrace that artist and embrace that artist's art, because that art is the art that speaks to the soul. When I was a little girl, Richard Pryor was the big comedian. And people would say, don't listen to this. And your parents even would say, oh, you can't listen to this. And as a consequence, we all listened to it. We found a way to Richard Pryor's art. We find a way to the most soulful deliverers of art and culture in our community. When people were saying that hip hop was negative, we found a way to hip hop and we embraced hip hop. And when we embrace our art, the whole world ends up embracing our art,
Absolutely.
because our art is what moves the culture, and it is our finger on the pulse, on the nerve, on the heartbeat of humanity. And that's the bottom line. So now, no matter where you travel in the world, if you're riding in a car, you're going to be passed by a car that's playing
Mhm.
hip hop music. The
Yep.
same way, no matter where you go in the world, if somebody is looking for a good book, a moving book, a powerful storyteller, a powerful story, a great adventure, a passionate feeling, then they're going to get a Sister Souljah book no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what,
Yes.
anybody says, they're going to get it and they're going to read it. Even if I write a book and somebody puts a bad review on the book, which people do to try to throw a distance between myself and the readers, it doesn't matter, because first of all, reviewers don't normally read the book. Readers read the book. And
Right.
so once you read it, I don't think there's one person who, once they read the book, every word on every page has any negative thing to say. And I don't think there's one person who reads one of my novels who doesn't change
Yeah.
by the end of the story.
Yeah.
When you first pick it up and sit down and read it, you will not be the same when you read the last word in the last chapter of any of these novels.
So powerful and so true. The title of your book, Life After Death, it's a nod to Notorious B.I.G.'s posthumous second album.
Absolutely.
Did you? Yeah. So what role or why did you decide to do that, or what inspiration did he bring to you when you were coming up with your title?
Well, actually, in the book, there is a discussion between Winter and her friends about the Notorious B.I.G. But honestly, the title, in other words, the title came based on the content of the book. The title did not come because the Notorious B.I.G. had that title.
Yeah.
Clearly, he had that title first, and that was in the music genre. I'm doing books, it's a little different.
Yeah.
But everybody knows that the Notorious B.I.G. had a powerful voice and delivery of the lyric, and had a powerful life experience, and had a very controversial death experience. And so I think that the title fits perfectly.
Yes. I agree wholeheartedly. Do you plan on revisiting Winter's story again in the future?
Yes, all of my characters are alive in my head, in my imagination, in my soul, and I will continue to write the characters. If you notice, of my 6 novels, they're all characters from The Coldest Winter Ever. So we have The Coldest Winter Ever, and then we have Winter's sister, Portia Santiago. So she has her own novel, A Deeper Love Inside, the Portia Santiago story. Then there's Life After Death, which is the sequel, because it is based on Winter Santiago from The Coldest Winter Ever. And then you have the whole Midnight series. Midnight was the love obsession of Winter Santiago in The Coldest Winter Ever. So I have 3 novels in the Midnight series: Midnight, a gangster love story, Midnight and the Meaning of Love, and A Moment of Silence, Midnight 3. So I will continue writing. And my next novel will be featuring those same characters.
Fantastic. How long does it take you to write a novel?
It depends on what it is. The Midnight novels took me longer to write than The Coldest Winter Ever or Life After Death. The Coldest Winter Ever Maybe it took me about a year.
Mhm. What?
Midnight took a number of years
Mhm.
to write because I had to do a lot of research
Mhm.
for that book and for those books and for that story. And Life After Death, uh, if I count the time that I'm just walking around
Mhm.
with the story in my head, it's a long time. But if I count the time of having sat down and just started writing with my pen and my paper in longhand, uh, it would be just just a few months.
So talk to me about that briefly. I remember seeing that in an interview with you. You write out everything longhand.
Yes.
Why don't you use a typewriter or a keyboard or something? Because that just seems, I don't know. I'm so used to typing. I'm so used to using my thumbs now. I couldn't imagine writing out a book longhand.
Right. Well, I think it's about feelings, right?
Mm.
I love pen and paper and I
Yeah.
love writing. Uh, when I'm using a computer, the tapping of the keys is an interruption to my imagination.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't want to have to think about tapping the keys. I don't want to hear the tapping of the keys. I don't want to be thinking about typos or anything. I want my pen to glide and I want my pen to be as fast as my imagination.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose a thought having to press enter or having to press delete or backspace or whatever.
Mhm.
With my pen, I don't have to do that. So once I write the story out in longhand, I can get, one of my nieces or nephews, I can get them to do the typing uh, based on what I've written on the page. And
Mhm.
then there's no interruption to the
Mhm.
storytelling that's coming, from from the inside of me.
Yeah. I'm going to volunteer that if you ever need somebody to help type things out after you've written them longhand, that I volunteer myself. Which, yeah, that would be fantastic. Do you, when you're writing these stories out, it sounds like you have multiple stories happening in your head at the same time. Does your
Mhm.
work overlap?
What do you mean by overlap?
Are you writing one book and then another story pops into your head, so you stop and start a different book? I mean, or are you working?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay.
After I wrote The Coldest Winter Ever, I immediately started writing the Porsche Santiago story,
Okay.
which the title ended up being A Deeper Love Inside.
Hmm.
Halfway through the Porsche Santiago story, I stopped and
Mm,
began writing the Midnight book instead.
gotcha.
So, whereas originally The Coldest Winter Ever would have been followed by Winter's younger sister,
Hmm.
uh, The Coldest Winter Ever became followed by Midnight.
Hmm.
Uh, I thought at that moment, the feeling in the air was that there needed to be a novel about manhood,
Mm,
a coming of age story
hmm.
for young men. I thought at that moment,
Mm,
the whole definition of manhood was under assault,
yeah.
and I thought for our sons and our brothers and our fathers and our husbands, somebody needed to write something powerful that captured
Yeah.
the meaning of manhood before it got stolen away.
Yeah.
And so, again, when I say the books come from my soul, I believe that every person has a soul. And I believe that Allah talks to each person through their soul.
Mhm.
And my soul ordered me to stop writing the Porsche story
Mm.
and to write the Midnight story instead.
Wow.
And so I followed that order.
Hmm. Well, we're all glad that you did.
Thank
Um, just kind of a funny topic. I heard that you haven't watched any television or movies in 4 years. What
Television,
led you
not
to
movie.
that? Just more than that?
I said, I haven't watched any television, but I do watch films.
Oh,
But
okay.
I don't watch the mainstream films.
Okay.
I watch normally foreign films.
So what led you to cut out the mainstream television, and will you ever go back? And are there any shows that you wish you would have seen after you talked to friends about them?
No, I don't
No?
miss it. I don't miss it because uh, I am a storyteller that appreciates great storytelling.
Mm,
And so I just found there to be
mm,
a
mhm.
dumbing down in America, meaning the content is not powerful.
Yeah,
It's just meant to cause a reaction.
yeah,
How low can we go?
yeah.
As Chuck D of Public Enemy used to say, how low can we go?
Yeah.
And I felt that television uh, just lost a lot of its integrity.
Mhm,
Uh, wasn't the storytelling wasn't coming from the soul,
mm,
wasn't speaking to the soul,
mhm.
wasn't moving the soul forward. It was kind of just stoking the lowest desires or the lowest elements of humanity.
Mhm.
I don't consider entertainment to be the same thing that many others consider entertainment to be. For example, if I go to a film, even if the film is about the enslavement of African people, and I'm in a theater and I have my box of popcorn and
Mhm.
I have my chocolate almonds
Mhm.
and I'm watching for 2 hours Black people being whipped
Yeah.
and bleeding and being caged
Yeah.
and being chained ankles and wrists, and these are stories that I believe have to be told, but this is not entertainment.
Right.
Or if I'm watching a pop film star murder 100 people, with, it's just, that's not entertainment to me. It doesn't make my soul feel good. It doesn't make my mind learn anything that I didn't already know,
Yeah.
or that is positive for me.
Yeah.
So I have to sometimes unplug.
Mhm.
And so I unplugged from TV when I was watching the reality shows, the same way I felt that manhood was under attack at a certain point. I felt the definition of womanhood was just being soiled. It just turned filthy.
Mhm.
It was no longer what I perceived womanhood to be, which is 360 degrees of power.
Yeah.
That's my definition of womanhood. And I think if you are a woman, you have an emotional dimension, you have a political dimension, you have a physical dimension, you have an intellectual dimension, you have a spiritual
Mhm.
dimension. You have 360 degrees. You're not just, as Winter would say, you're not just somebody's, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and if all of the content is about just the sexual aspect of a woman, or the conniving aspect of a woman, it's okay if that's one or two characters, but if that becomes the definition
Mhm.
of womanhood, then it's not okay. Whether it's, old school throwback Erica Kane
Mhm.
definition of womanhood, or more present day, like the character that Kerry Washington played in Scandal, kind of woman. I
Mhm.
just think that the definitions became a little too one dimensional for me. just not powerful, just not beautiful.
Well, what advice would you have then for young women, for young ladies out there who are struggling with these stereotypes and these definitions being placed on them? And how can they stand up for themselves? How can they push back? How can they break those societal norms that are being placed on them? What would you say, or what have you said? I have to imagine that when all of these readers come and talk to you about how they relate to winter, what kind of advice do you have?
Well, the thing is, I believe in study,
Mhm.
but in American popular television, and the person who studies is seen as being the outcast
Mhm.
or the nerd.
Mhm.
Even for students, students are kind of corralled into just reading whatever the teacher assigns.
Yeah.
But I think a child from a young age should be taken to the public library by their parents. I think at the library, the child should feel complete freedom
Yeah.
to go through the bookshelves and find the book that speaks to them or
Mhm.
jumps out to them.
Yeah.
And I think that reading should be not just an assignment, it should be something that we do every day, because this is how you learn uh, through study. And so from a young age, I was in constant state of studying.
Mhm.
If you don't study, then you become a victim
Mm.
of the stereotype, and you become a prototype of whatever's on the TV at the time that you're viewing, especially for people who watch hours and hours of television a day,
Yeah.
where you could be doing something that's more impactful to your life. So I try to gain my understanding of myself and my purpose through study and through travel.
Mhm.
This way, I can read books, I can travel to different countries, I can learn things firsthand.
Yeah.
It's what we call in study primary source.
Yeah.
If you don't study, you always have to accept the opinion and the analysis of someone else. So now, if the people in power are the ones who set the opinions and
Mhm.
who tell all of the stories, uh,
Mhm.
then they're going to tell stories to maintain their power. So
Mhm.
if you're an individual who's not in power, not even in control of your own life, who's stuck in poverty, who's stuck in a location where you don't feel safe, if you don't study and you only listen to the people in power, you're going to stay in the same inferior position.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And I keep looking off to my side because I'm watching the Facebook posts right now as they're coming in, and everybody is agreeing with you. It's a powerful message. And so I appreciate you sharing that with us. You talk about that you've traveled, and I know that you've traveled quite extensively. Is there a place in the world that speaks to you the most, that you felt like you've learned the most from, um, that you would love to go back to?
I don't, I'm unable to pick one place. I
Mhm.
get this question a lot.
Mhm.
I'm unable to pick one place because every place that I travel to
Mhm.
uh, stays with me. I
Yeah.
mean, it's such an incredible experience. I don't travel as a tourist.
Mhm.
I travel as a student,
Mhm.
somebody who's just totally open to learning.
Mhm.
Because again, if you use the media to define everything, then they will actually tell you who your friends are
Yeah.
and tell you who 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 is not supposed to be your friends.
Mhm.
And this puts up a wall and a barrier
Yeah.
between different human beings from different places. So when I travel, I'm an open book. I am not traveling with anybody else's mindset, with
Mhm.
anybody else's opinions or anybody else's script
Yeah.
for what I should like or not like, or what I should see or not see. So when I'm traveling, I'm going there and I'm wanting to meet the people
Mhm.
uh, in their everyday lives. I'm wanting to engage the language in any way that I can. Even though I probably won't become fluent, I want to learn enough to be able to communicate
Yeah.
and be able to feel and have my finger on the pulse of what's going on there.
Mhm.
So I think that's a whole nother book and a whole different interview, because if I start talking about the countries that I've been to, the things that I felt and learned,
Mhm.
we would never be able to end this
I,
this
I
session.
I will have you back so we can have that interview. I'll tell you. It is getting close to our wrapping up time. I do have a few audience questions I wanted to share with you. One of the big ones is, will we ever see a movie adaptation of this story or any of your stories?
Well, there's a word I've been saying in reference to this now because I get this question 100 million times, and
Yeah.
that word is inshallah, and that means God willing.
Yeah.
I find that with all of my work, it's not about what I want or what the people want. It's if God is willing, then it'll happen.
Yeah.
So I've had movie deals in the past, and I have a movie deal right now. So
For the coldest winter
I
ever?
hope for the coldest winter ever, and I hope that it comes into fruition.
Yeah.
But the greatest movies and the greatest art don't happen quick.
Right.
Things that happen quick, or things that happen cheap,
Yeah.
or things that happen
Love that.
fast are not the greatest things. So
Mm-mm.
this has been a long time in the making.
Yeah.
It's not something that I'm ignoring. It's not even something that Hollywood is
Mhm.
ignoring. It's
Mhm.
just something that takes a lot of effort to get the business of it straight
Yeah.
before it comes to the scene. The business and the creativity of it straight. But yes, there will be a movie, inshallah. I wrote the screenplay,
Oh,
and I'm right there in the front, pushing for it to happen.
that's fantastic. There's a bunch of yays going across my screen over here. People are very excited about that. So that would be fantastic. Another audience question. At this time in your life, what would you say you're most grateful for?
Mhm. I guess I would have to say for my health,
Yeah.
uh, because I heard the lady who spoke before you came on,
Mhm.
she was talking about health and community health.
Mhm.
And the bottom line is, if you don't feel good and you don't feel well, you almost can't do anything, you
Mm.
know? As an author, I have to be healthy
Yeah.
in order to access my imagination. If
Mhm.
I'm suffering with illness, um, then my imagination is blocked, like how on your cell phone you can block someone from calling you. If
Mhm.
you don't have your health, you're blocked. And so it's important for each of us. I'm not a big exercise person, but I know that I have to circulate my blood. I
Mhm.
have to walk. I have to walk, run, flail my arms,
Mhm.
circulate
Mhm.
my blood. I have to eat healthy organic foods. I have to stay away from toxic foods, and I don't drink like soda and sugary things like this. So I think for health is for each of us, our health is one of the greatest blessings and greatest pursuits
Yeah,
uh, that we can journey for.
I agree 100%. This has been such an amazing conversation. I'm going to wrap it up, but I want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. You've been inspirational and powerful and moving, and just watching the comments coming through on the feed right now have just, everybody's just so excited that this story is back, and you brought winter back to our lives. And there's a lot of people hoping that, God willing, we'll get that book or that movie as well. So thank you for sharing your passion and your gift with us. And hopefully we'll get you here in person sometime soon.
Thank you. And I miss the people. So I feel you, like, even though we're on this digital platform and you're cheering for me, I'm cheering for you. And I pray that we all get better and do better than we've ever done before.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And to everybody watching, thank you for joining us. And hopefully you'll join us for our next author, Jack Carr, coming next month. And there's the book right there.
Life After Death. Get
Life
it.
After Death.
Read
Yes.
it.
The library has
And
them.
discuss it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.